Hey, what's up everybody? Brian Dean here and welcome to the third lesson. In the last lesson you learned why an RLL is one of the fastest ways to get more traffic to your blog. You also got started on your RLL by choosing a topic using the strategies that I outlined for you in the worksheet. And in this lesson, we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty. Specifically, I'm gonna show you exactly how to assemble your first ridiculously long list. And note that I said assemble, not write. In fact, when I first started blogging, I really struggled with the whole writing process. I remember staring at a blank screen for ages, wondering how to get started or what to write next. I'd write a line, then delete that line. And at the end of a few hours, all I'd have to show for it was a paragraph or two. It was super frustrating. That's when I decided to approach writing blog posts from a different angle. Instead of writing blog posts, I'd assemble blog posts. In other words, I'd create each section individually, then put them all together. And it worked. Writing was much less intimidating. And I never had to struggle with blank screen syndrome again. I just outlined the pieces, filled in the blanks, and I was done. And this experience taught me a valuable lesson about blogging. Great blog posts aren't written, they're assembled. For example, take something like my Google ranking factors post. This single post is over 5,000 words. Imagine if I just opened up a new post in WordPress and started from scratch. For a post like that, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But when you create a post one piece at a time, the process is actually really easy. It's like a paint by numbers approach to creating awesome content. In fact, a lot of people ask me how I can write so much long form content for the blog in addition to YouTube videos and courses like this. And my secret is that I don't write in the traditional sense. Instead, I break each post down into tiny little pieces. Then I create each piece one at a time. Finally, I put the pieces together. This unique approach is how I was able to publish over 70,000 words of content last year alone. With that, let's get right into the steps. Specifically, I'm going to show you exactly how to create and assemble your RLL step by step. So let's start at the top of the post and work our way down. Step one is to create the title of your post. Remember, your RLL is going to be huge. So don't be afraid to really sell that fact in the title of your post. And when it comes to your RLL title, you have two options. You can focus on the fact that your post is a complete or ultimate list, or you can just highlight the number of items on your list. If you want to focus on the fact that your list is comprehensive, here's the title formula I recommend. For example, the title for my Google Ranking Factors post is Google Ranking Factors, the complete list. So for this title, I focused on the fact that my list was comprehensive. Is calling my post a complete list of Google Ranking Factors bold? Heck yeah, it is. In fact, lots of people wrote about how I shouldn't have called my post complete, which led to even more traffic to my site. And if you want to focus on the size of your list, use this formula for your headline. For example, take a look at this RLL, a list of employee wellness program ideas. This post was actually written by a backlinko reader. And there's actually an interesting story about that post. Before publishing this RLL, the Snack Nation blog was struggling for months. They were putting out the same 10 tips for employee wellness stuff that everyone else in their niche was publishing, and they weren't getting anywhere. So they decided to create an RLL, and it was a massive success. This single post led to tens of thousands of targeted visitors. And because the post was on a topic that their target customers cared about, a good chunk of those visitors turned directly into leads and sales. In fact, someone from their company told me that this single RLL led to a $100,000 increase in revenue per month. Anyway, as you can see here, this RLL includes the exact number of program ideas, 121, in the title. Which actually leads us to a little pro tip, which is whenever possible, make the number of items on your list an odd number. For example, with my SEO tools post, I made sure to list out 191 tools, not a round number like 150 or 190. Why? Odd numbers stand out more. In fact, this is a good rule of thumb to follow for any list post that you publish, not just RLLs. And once you finish your headline, it's time for your intro. Specifically, you want your intro to include a strong promise, the number of items on your list, what to expect, and a call to action. Let's break these down with an example, the introduction from my SEO tools post. As you can see, the first line is a strong promise. I literally promise that you can see the best SEO tools in one place. Remember that your content isn't just another lame list post or a boring article like 5 reasons that video marketing is important. It's a huge list that took a lot of work to put together. So don't be afraid to really sell your content in your intro. Let people know that you really have something special in store. You also want to mention how many items you have on your list, preferably in the first or second line of your intro. Again, the sheer size of your list is largely what makes an RLL stand out. So make sure to feature that number early on. I actually recommend bolding the number to make it really stand out. Next, quickly outline what you have in store in your post. Is it a list of paleo recipes? Techniques for being more productive? Are they organized by theme, topic, or level of expertise? Let them know about that right here. For example, in my SEO tools post, I note that you can use filters to find the tool that's the best fit for you. Finally, cap off your intro with a call to action. Nothing fancy here, just a single line to encourage people to keep reading. A list of 100, 150, or 200 items can be pretty intimidating. And some people will need just a little push to actually start reading your post. For example, in my Google Ranking Factors post, I say, let's dive right in. But you could also use phrases like keep reading or check out this list. All in all, you want to keep your intro to 4 to 7 lines max. Just quickly cover what your list is, how many items you have, and then jump right into your list. For example, you can see that the intro from my SEO tools post is a grand total of 4 lines. Okay, so now that your intro is ready, the next step in this process is to jot down a few different categories. These are categories that the items on your list will fall under. These categories are important for 2 main reasons. First, they help you stay organized. Trust me, managing a massive list of 150 items, tips, recipes, or whatever can get really overwhelming really quickly. This is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. But managing 10 categories with 15 tips each, that's easy. Second, organizing your content into categories makes your list much more valuable. Anyone can just list off a bunch of random tips off the top of their head. But when you organize them into discrete sections, you make it easy for people to find the things that are most important to them, which makes your content significantly more valuable. For example, with my Google Ranking Factors post, I put all the factors under different categories like domain factors, backlink factors, and brand signals. And for my tools post, I categorize each tool based on price, category, and whether or not I recommend it. At this point, you probably don't know all the categories that you're going to use, and that's okay. These are probably going to change as you create your list anyway. So just jot down a few sections that you think your items might fall under, and then move on to the next step. In other words, your categories aren't set in stone. You can always add, delete, or change categories later on. Now, for the next step, it's time to come up with all the items on your list. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. This step takes work. But that's exactly why an RLL is so effective. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Now, I show you exactly how to find items for your RLL in the worksheet. But as a quick overview, here's how this process works. First, just brainstorm as many things as you can think of. So open up a Google Doc or Evernote file and just write down anything that comes to mind. Don't worry about whether it's good or bad. Just jot it down. A lot of the times, one of your bad items will lead to a handful of things that will ultimately end up on your list. What you actually write down depends a lot on what kind of RLL you're creating. If it's a list of techniques or strategies, you can just write down as many techniques as you can think of. If it's a list of recipes, you can just think of all the recipes that you know off the top of your head. For example, with my SEO tools post, I listed out the tools that I use every day, like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and BuzzSumo. Then, once you finish brainstorming, I recommend looking at other posts in your niche for ideas, specifically other list posts. Obviously, you don't want to steal someone else's work. You're just looking at other posts to get an idea of what's already out there and things that you can use in your post. And sometimes just reading other content can help you remember ideas that are somewhere in your brain, but you couldn't think of without looking at another post. And if you do use something from another site, just make sure to cite the original source with a link. First off, it's just the right thing to do, but it also makes your content look really well referenced, which will encourage other people to share it. For example, my Google Ranking Factors post relied heavily on other sources like statements from Google, patent filings, blog posts, and quotes from Google employees. And I cited every single source that I used. In fact, my Google Ranking Factors post has a link for almost every single factor on the list. Now that you have at least 100 items listed out, it's time to add content to each of them. Basically, here's where you outline and explain every item on your list. To be clear, you don't need to go into a ton of detail here. I mean, you have 100+ items on your list. It would be insane to write 300 words for each one. Instead, you just want to write about 10 to 20 words that describe every tool, technique, or tip, or whatever it is you're covering. For example, look at my SEO tools post. Imagine if I just said, here's 100 tools, there you go. That would be pretty lame. Instead, I tested each and every tool and I wrote a mini review for each one. Was this hard work? Yeah, it was. But this extra content took my post from a skeleton list of tools to a meaty piece of valuable content. And at this point, you're pretty much done. You have a title, an intro, a list of items, and a description for each item on your list. Now it's time to get your RLL ready for publication. Here's how. First, add charts, images, screenshots, and other multimedia to your post. This helps break up your content. Otherwise, for a giant post like this, it's just gonna look like a giant wall of text. So if your RLL is a list of recipes, include pictures of some of the dishes. Or if it's a list of video editing tools, show screenshots of the software in action. To be clear, you don't need an image or a piece of multimedia for every item on your list. Just make sure to include at least one image for every 10 items on your list. And if you can swing it and if it makes sense, include one image for every 5 items on your list. For example, let's take another look at that Wellness Program Ideas RLL that I mentioned earlier. It's pretty hard to visualize or find multimedia for wellness programs. It's not like you can take a screenshot of a wellness program. So they used high quality stock photos that represented some of their ideas. And in my opinion, these look really nice. Next, you want to use jump links in your post. That way people can just jump to the section that's important to them. For example, you can see that I included jump links to each section right after the intro of my Google Ranking Factors post. This is great from a user experience standpoint. And as an added bonus, these links can turn into site links underneath your Google result. In my experience, these site links can increase your organic click-through rate by 25% or more. I have more detail on how to set these up in the worksheet. Last up, we have your conclusion. The main goal of your conclusion is to get people to leave a comment. And the best way to do that, ask people if there's something missing from your list. Trust me, people online love pointing out other people's mistakes. And they especially love pointing out that you missed something on a so-called complete or definitive list. So make sure to encourage people to comment about things you missed in your conclusion. For example, the conclusion of my SEO tools post is designed to ask people to comment about tools that I missed on my list. Not only is asking for things you missed a great way to get people to comment, but it can actually make your post even better. How? People will give you items that you can add to your list. For example, lots of people let me know about awesome SEO tools that I didn't include on my original list. These are tools I would have never found otherwise. And I added lots of these tools to updated versions of my post, which made my content better and more comprehensive. So it's kind of like crowdsourcing a new and improved version of your content. To quickly recap, you learned that great content isn't written, it's assembled. I also showed you how to assemble your first ridiculously long list. And in the next lesson, I'll show you how to finalize your RLL and get it ready for publication. But right now, you probably already know what time it is. It's worksheet time. In the worksheet below this video, I'll help you assemble your RLL step by step. I'll also give you a few extra tips and techniques that I didn't have room to cover in the video. As a fair warning, your RLL might be a little hard to complete at first. After all, you're creating a massive post that includes over 100 items. That's no joke. But stick with it, it takes some time. But the results can make it well worth the effort. And like I mentioned, to make this process as simple as possible, there's a worksheet for you underneath this lesson. This worksheet breaks the process down into little bite-sized pieces, and I walk you through each step one at a time. That way, there's no guesswork. Just follow the steps and you're set. So go ahead and download the worksheet, and I'll see you in the next lesson.